Welcome to the Middle of the Res Road podcast. I am one of the hosts. My name is Joel, and I'm here with Charlie, another one of our hosts. And today we have in the podcast room members from the Allete company, Kurt and Jennifer. If you would just like to give us a little lowdown on a little bit of your history with Allete.
Joel, thank you. Yeah, this is Kurt Anderson, and I've been with Allete or Minnesota Power, as most folks know the company around here for, I would say, about 15 years, closing in on 16 years. And I came to Allete in the water department, the water compliance area. Previous to that, I had been working at an environmental testing laboratory. So I graduated with a degree in biology from University of Minnesota Duluth, so a local boy. Grew up in Brookston, still within a few miles of where I grew up, and a great opportunity to join Allete came about. I was really interested in it, and since that time I've taken on a bunch of different roles, and now lead our environmental and land management group for the company.
That's impressive. Impressive, Kurt. That's a good resume right there. And you're local. That's, my hat's off to you. And Jennifer.
Yes. First, thank you so much for having us here today. My name's Jennifer Cady. I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs at Minnesota Power. I kind of had a non-traditional way of coming into the company. I served in the military for 20 years. I grew up on the Iron Range and then came back to Duluth after my military service and joined Minnesota Power about almost 12 years ago. So now I lead the area of our company that works directly with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. We're regulated by the state of Minnesota, and so our team works on approvals for all kinds of things, new project, long-term plans, almost any aspect of our business. So that's what I do at MP most days.
Hey, Jennifer, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What branch did you serve in?
So I was in the active duty Army first, and then I transitioned to the Air Force National Guard.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I come from a long line of veterans. My dad was in the Marines, Vietnam. My grandfather, he was in Korea, Marines. My grandfather on my mom's side, same thing. Just a long list of military.
Lots of Marines.
Background. Yeah.
Yeah, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. And I won't say what they say about Army.
That's okay. I've heard
There's
it
an
all.
acronym.
Yeah.
I know them all.
This guy.
What was your favorite thing about the Army?
People, for sure. I mean, I feel like one of the great blessings of the military is it's like a true melting pot, right? You get to meet people from all parts of the country, all walks of life, all kinds of different backgrounds. And then you get put together in this kind of shared hardship situation, and that bonds people like nothing else. So I don't think you can replicate that many other places.
Do you rock the veteran stuff?
I don't.
Why not?
I have a little complicated feelings about that.
You have what? Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Before we get into some of these questions.
I mean, I just I don't feel like bragging. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. I just feel like it's too much attention on my service, it feels like. So I don't have like the license plate, right? Or like decals on my car or anything like that.
I think that's one of the best things to be proud of. I thank you for your service.
Well,
that's,
thank you.
20 years is a long time to dedicate your life to something that you really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And that's something to be proud of. I'd wear it for you if I could.
Well, I'll send you something.
Okay, that sounds
you.
good.
Yeah.
My dad didn't wear anything military related until 1992 when he got his first Vietnam vet hat.
Wow.
Otherwise, up until 1992, he felt the same way.
Yeah.
And then it was completely different. He got spit on when he came back and
right.
all of that. So he had a hard experience coming home.
Most Vietnam era vets did.
Kurt, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I lived in Brookston too. So did you hunt in Brookston? Do you hunt in Brookston?
I do.
Whereabouts?
So I grew up on McCamus Road, which is just west of Brookston. And I actually live just a couple miles farther west than that now. So
That's one of my favorite parts to hunt. Off of, you say McCamus?
McCamus Road.
I always say McCamus. I don't know. I actually don't know how that road's pronounced, but McCamus Road, I love that. Love the hunting territory back there. It's just one of a kind. There's nothing like it in the area. It's definitely the best hunting.
I've really enjoyed it out there. It's got kind of a good combination of good habitat. The river is right there. You have kind of a diversified mix of different tree species. So you've got some maple trees for tapping, and you've got some aspen for grouse hunting, and it's a good place.
Should we dive into these questions?
Yes, let's dive right in. Well, they kind of told us a little bit about their roles with the company. So what are some opportunities and challenges the company is facing?
Well, I can start out, and Jennifer, I'm sure, will have her thoughts to add. But we were talking a little bit earlier just about energy prices, and they continue to increase, and the challenges that has. That's part of the, I think, overall kind of the situation a lot of utilities and energy companies are in right now as we drive towards more renewables is to bring those online and to do that in a cost-effective way without sacrificing reliability and affordability. That's a tall task, and so it's doable, and I think we've made great strides at Minnesota Power. We've achieved 50% renewable energy, which when I came there 15 years ago, I think we were at 5%, Jennifer, something like that. So we've come a long way. We got a long way to go yet, but it's that balance. I think trying to find that balance. How do we transition to a lower carbon energy supply? How do we do that? And still make sure the lights are on when we need them. And how do we? A lot of these new projects that we're doing, whether it's a solar facility or a wind facility or siting a new transmission line, there's a lot of land that's needed to do that. So a lot of land rights that are needed, and trying to balance that impact as well. So those are both opportunities and challenges. It seems like they're always kind of bundled together, but I would say that's some of it. And then increasing expectations from society on how we make that transition. There's a lot of outreach. There's a lot of different opinions out there, and how do you try to engage with all those folks and do so in an authentic way while still moving the ball forward on this transition.
How often does the company look at what other countries or what other states are doing?
Constantly. We do. I would say, as just to echo what Kurt said, you can't understate how much of a historic transition we're in the middle of, right? So it took 100 years for us to electrify America and bring electric service to every home and farm. And now we're trying to kind of redesign the way we deliver that power in the midst of climate change, right? To do it in a different way that mitigates impact on the climate. But we recognize it's an essential service, right? That what unites everybody is we all have a power bill, right? And nobody likes to pay it, but we all certainly, appreciate the service, especially when it's not there. So we're kind of constantly looking at what other states are doing, what other countries are doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And I think that's where the opportunity is that, we have this challenge to kind of reimagine how we're going to deliver power in the future. And the challenge is getting it right.
Is there anything that personally, do you guys personally look at what other countries are doing, once in a while, or look at personally just you two, maybe we should try this, and then how does that go? How do you push that forward in the organization? I'm sure Minnesota Power is huge. It's a huge organization. So where do you funnel all that information?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do, I think Jennifer and I both do look personally, and then as part of larger groups, we try to understand what's going on, what's been adopted elsewhere, what has worked, what hasn't. Personally, I've been working on a project on some decarbonization options that are more prevalent in Europe than they are in the United States. And I think we have just this incredible structure at Minnesota Power, at Allete, with our strategy groups and steering committees, where it doesn't have to be, Jennifer or myself as directors coming in and bringing in these ideas. Pretty much anybody can come forward and say, hey, here's something that might fit for us. How should we evaluate that? And so we have these, strategy groups that are set up to sort of do an initial vetting of it. Hey, does this hold water or not? Can we move it forward? And hey, maybe operationally that could work. Let's look at the economics here. We have an obligation to serve our customers in a cost-effective way. Does that work? How is it going to fit within our overall strategy? And, at times that can make it all the way to the top of the organization and the board of directors. Other times it might only make it through and up to the first level or so and say, hey, not good idea, but not quite ready yet. We like to, when we can, fail fast. We don't want to spend a lot of time and resources chasing after something that isn't going to serve our customers. But that external sensing piece is something I think we've done really well, and we've really tried to make sure that all the employees feel like they can bring forward ideas, because it's going to take all of us to transition.
I really appreciate that, because I like studying organizations and how they work. It's just like asking questions like that, and then knowing that you guys do like a shooting squad on your idea, and then hit that idea as many times as you can and see if it's a really good idea, and then roll in with it. Yeah, I appreciate that.
We always say if someone has a question inside the company about something, it's for sure a question someone outside would have. So let's figure it out, right? Let's hear the question. Let's challenge it a little bit, because the more I think we do that internally, the better project we have to bring forward, right? We have this saying at Minnesota Power that we're kind of a big company but a small company feel. And we have a lot of people that stay with the company for a long time, 20, 30 years even. And so I think that builds a really nice culture of camaraderie, where you can pitch some ideas and, stop by Kurt's office and say, this might be a little crazy, but what do you think of this? And I think that's really helpful.
Who's your dream killer on the team? Everybody has a dream killer.
I mean, aren't they always the lawyers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just no offense to our lawyers who are great at mitigating risk.
The reality breaker. That's what it is, too. Come on back. Come on back.
At work, my brother is my dream killer. I have a million ideas on how we can save the language or what we can do next or anything, and then some. And I'm supposed to be the team leader, so my team ends up making all these ideas. We put it on the board, and then my brother comes back and he checks us and he's like, "This is doable. I don't think this is gonna work." So we shoot down ideas all the time, and I've kind of got used to it. Like before, I used to feel like, man, this is a really good one, and then we just shoot down the ideas or throw whatever we can at the idea to see if it's actually good. So I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, it was just how I've come to learn how to work within bigger organizations.
And sometimes the idea is not bad, it's just the wrong time, right? So sometimes it'll be like, hang on to that one for a little bit, and it'll come back when it's the right time for it.
Yeah, when everybody forgets about it.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Okay. Can you explain how Allete views tribal relations and why the company created these tribal liaison roles?
I can start. So okay. I don't know if Jennifer and I mentioned this already, but we have distinct tribal liaison roles. So I'm the tribal liaison for Leech Lake, and Jennifer is for Fond du Lac. But we both participate pretty heavily with different meetings and outcomes. But, really, I think one of the reasons we as a company decided to create these roles was, the recognition that we are operating within the ceded territories. We have utility service on the reservation, both Leech Lake and Fond du Lac. And we have many different interfaces with the tribal nations that we serve. It could be billing, it could be policy issues, it could be a wide variety. And some of the feedback that we had heard is that with so many different areas of Minnesota Power that tribes are working with, it would be nice to have a single point of contact and preferably somebody who knew a little bit about how the tribe functioned, how the tribal government worked, some of the history, so there wasn't starting over from scratch with a new person every time. So we had a very I think thoughtful and it took us some time, a very thoughtful process to how were we going to do, what was this role going to do, what was this role not going to do or not going to be, and who was going to do it, and how was that person or persons going to be supported. But that was really sort of the genesis here, is that we heard, and I would say, for customers, we always want to be available, and we want to be responsive to the needs. And there was some, I would say, unique and interesting needs from the tribal nations, and we wanted to make sure that we were serving those customers the right way.
And I'd just add that, the first part of the question, how does Allete view tribal relations? It is one of the most important priorities for our Chief Executive Officer, our CEO, Bethany Owen, that we kind of do things the right way and engage respectfully and recognize the sovereign status of the nations that we serve. And so that makes our job a whole lot easier because the CEO says this is important and we need to do it right, and we need to provide service in the way that our tribal nations want to be served.
How do you think that the world's going to change because I know tribal liaisons, it's like a new thing for a bunch of companies, and it's a new thing for even the state. The state itself has a whole bunch of tribal liaisons now. So how do you think that role's going to morph as time goes on?
I guess I can tell you how I hope it evolves. I think we've spent quite a bit of time here just building a good base relationship and a good understanding of what our different priorities are over these past few years. I think we know each other a lot better, and I'm hopeful that as things go on, we're going to be getting more into the opportunity side of this and the synergies we might be able to achieve together. There's a lot of aligned interests between what we're trying to do as a company, how we feel personally about protecting the environment, and making sure that we have a good economy. There's a lot of alignment with the tribal nations. It's not 100%. There's never going to be between two groups 100% alignment. But I think the more we get to know each other, the more conversations we have, the more clear it becomes that there's really going to be some interesting opportunities to work together and to further the understanding across our company of what those priorities are, and get more people thinking about it and bringing more creative ideas forward, like we were just talking about. I think that's the hope and the goal, and I do feel like we're moving toward that direction.
How did was there any growing pains in the beginning with building that relationship? Like, how did that look?
I think we're still building the relationship. I definitely don't think it's kind of a check the box, okay, we're good now, right? We assigned a tribal liaison, we're done. It's not that at all. I think it's a continuously, hopefully improving relationship. I think we recognized, at least I'll speak on behalf of our relationship with Fond du Lac, we recognized that we had a lot of retirements on the Minnesota Power side, right, as the workforce transition. And there was a lot of frustration within people that worked at Fond du Lac in different parts of the staff. Like, I used to talk to this person and they're gone now, and I don't know who to call. And so I feel like that was an initial growing pain. Like, okay, that's why we need someone who can at least be the point of contact and find the right people. So I think that was like the first hurdle that we had to get over. And I feel good about where we're at there, but it's definitely something that we're constantly working on making better.
evolving.
Always.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
evolving.
Yeah.
Just kind of with the times change. So the ideas change and the relationship changes.
For sure.
What is Allete Tribal Liaison doing to educate employees and customers about the importance of tribal relations?
Well, thanks. That's been something we've been asking ourselves as we were creating these roles, and trying to align, making sure that not only Jennifer, myself, and a few other folks at Allete were knowledgeable and up to speed, but really all of our employees, and making sure, especially those employees who are interacting with the different tribal entities, and it was something we certainly recognized we didn't have the answers ourselves, and that was something that we were both Jennifer and I and others said, this is something where we're going to need to bring in someone else's perspective on these issues. And so we were able to work with our executive team and bring in Tad Johnson and Joseph Bauerkemper and do some tribal training. And it was I think a little different than what people maybe would have anticipated. There was a lot of attendance. There's a lot of interest at Allete. I can't remember, Jennifer, how many people we had.
Yeah, I think it was over 100 employees that voluntarily signed up to spend 2 full days learning, really is what it was. And I think what was really unique, Tad and Joseph worked for the University of Minnesota, which is who we invited in. But we started with history because Kurt and I recognize that before you try to jump into learning about the culture, learning about where we're at today, it's our responsibility to educate ourselves on history and sovereignty and what does that mean. And so that was the training that we brought back to our company. And I think that's what Kurt meant when he said some people were surprised about where we started, thinking it was going to be something different. But I think we all learned a great deal, and we got really positive reviews from our employees.
I agree. The foundation that Tad and Joseph brought in, the foundational understanding of what it means to when the United States entered into a treaty, what rights were reserved by the tribe that they weren't given anything. These were reserved rights, the sovereign status of that nation. That's really, I think, was like the foundation and the underpinning of, we need to think about this a different way. We need to understand what the actual history is and start from there and work our way towards, these other things that we want to get to. And as Jennifer said, I think it was 2 almost 8-hour days, and we had everybody, including our CEO, stick it out the whole time and ask great questions, and we're super engaged. I think the one resounding question or comment we received from many employees as we did a post survey was, "What we want more? What can we do next?" So I think we were very happy with how the training turned out, but even more pleased just by how interested everyone was and how engaged they were. And that was actually something we saw such value in, that we brought in some of our large power customers, and we had almost as many folks from that. So all of our customers that we serve, and provided them with a similar training to help them with their tribal relation roles.
So most people don't realize that Minnesota Power is one of the most unique utilities in the country, because we serve all of the big industries on the Iron Range. So all of the mining operations, paper mills, and we invited all of those customers to come and sit through the same training that our employees did. And they did. They all came, and I think learned a lot, and we were just really grateful for the opportunity to be able to share what we learned with others.
Do you guys ever go back, or is there plans to do to look at the training again, or every so often?
I think it's probably going to be a regular piece of how we do our business. We have a pretty broad training and education program internally at Allete, and I think this is probably going to end up being just part of how new employees are onboarded and educated and trained on how we view these relationships. So, and we know there's probably it's it's going to evolve again. They're going to have different things that we're going to need to, educate ourselves on and get trained on. But it's recorded, and it is available for all employees to watch, and people are watching it, and it's really, I think it's been a very good thing to see just that level of awareness get raised up across the company.
I like that. I really like that. And you probably both see different sides of it since you're with Leech Lake, and you're with Fond du Lac, so you probably get a little bit different views of it. So do you both bring those views together and kind of present them that way, or you take views from other tribes in Minnesota and kind of just put them all together, or like when you're doing those trainings, it's like are you actually getting the different views from the different reservations, different needs from the different reservations? Because I know you probably got people working with every tribe.
Well, that's such a good point. And one of the foundational values that we understand is that each tribal nation is unique, right? And one mistake that we see sometimes is, people will lump them all together or say, these are the priorities of, the tribal nations in Minnesota. Well, we understand that each nation has its own priorities. And so we are very careful to say that, this is, what Leech Lake, as an example, thinks about this, but we don't assume that that's what everybody else thinks. And that's a lesson, that Kurt and I have learned and that we share with everyone in our organization as well, in terms of how we think about tribal relations.
And I'd also add, in addition to sort of the priorities, it's just how the different tribes prefer to do business, whether it's, you're going to coordinate with the Reservation Business Committee, or is it going to be with the natural resource staff first, and that's different from Leech Lake to Fond du Lac. They have different ways of doing business, so that's part of the learning curve too. Is not only how do we engage broadly, but how do we schedule a meeting? How do we arrange that? And so it's when you have the relationship, you can work through those pretty easily. But that's certainly something others who are maybe setting up these roles should really consider and think about, because it wasn't a priority focus area for us when we came into these roles. And then we've learned as we've come along that nope, it's just like when we deal with a customer, one customer might have a very different way of dealing with an issue and want different people in the room than a different company. And with tribal nations, with the government aspect, that's even elevated beyond that kind of interaction. So.
Yeah, I understand that.
And then, so I'm thinking about this as you're talking. So tribes, Fond du Lac, we have our election every 4 years, and then it's staggered. So every 2 years there's an election, and agendas change and priorities change, and depending on whoever wins the election. Do you ever force on my end, speaking as a tribal member, I would think that we have to do some good strategic planning so that these pieces are always in place, so that priorities don't tend to shift too dramatically. They're going to shift no matter what, depending on whoever gets in there. But for overall, like working with a company like Allete or the state of Minnesota or Enbridge or any one of them, I would think that strategic planning on our end would have to be one of the key things that would have to happen, because Allete, you guys are an organization, you guys been in an organization, you got that stability, and you got your goals set, and you got your goals stated already. So do you foresee being two tribal liaisons? Do you ever see, has elections happened?
Yes.
Yet, since you, has any of that shifted at all?
I'll speak on, from my perspective, working with Fond du Lac. I think Fond du Lac has such a ambitious and kind of clear goals in terms of environmental stewardship and positive things that you're doing for the climate, that hasn't really changed with elections. But one thing we try to do is we'll schedule a couple meetings a year with our CEO and our senior leaders in the tribal council. And, that agenda is kind of fluid. It's like, what do we feel like we need to talk about at that time? But just that engagement as council members turn over or there's new faces, we just want to remind the council that we're here and, we're happy to meet anytime and try to build those new relationships as new people join the government. So that's one way we try to get at that is, again, that senior level meeting a couple of times a year. And then we have far more frequent meetings on day-to-day business, right? Like, is there a power outage at the casino, or is there, a billing problem we have to look at? And so we kind of try to work with the staff and the council at different levels as frequently as it makes sense for them. But I think that regular engagement is really important. And exactly what you said about strategic planning. Minnesota Power has been around since 1906. We're not going anywhere. We have a long-term vision, and Fond du Lac has a long-term vision. And so being able to work together to find those opportunities is important. I think you're right on that. Strategic planning is an important part of that.
Yeah, the relationship with Leech Lake is, I think, reflective of the differences that we have. So Minnesota Power serves about half of the Fond du Lac Reservation with electric power. The Leech Lake has there's a couple overlaps with what we call our service territory, which is where we're allowed to provide energy, but we don't have the same kind of overlap at Leech Lake that we do. What we do have out at Leech Lake is our largest thermal generating facility. The Allete Energy Center is located about a mile from the reservation border. And so when it comes to, discussions around natural resources, whether it's timber or it's wild rice or it's climate, mercury, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of interaction because of the proximity. And so that's reflected in the relationship we have, which to this point has been mostly with staff, with their experts on whatever the topic might be, whether it's an environmental issue, a land issue, or a conservation issue. That's been most of the relationship we've had to date.
What do you think about the Fond du Lac Estuary project?
The wild rice
restoration,
yeah. I mean, it's a great project if they can get the rice to grow down there. I understand they're having some issues with geese and a few other things, and that's one of the things that a task force that I was working on identified was the pollution. The dose makes the poison always, right? You're going to have some level that's going to affect wild rice like any other living thing. There's also all these other things that are going on, like geese depredation. Think of all the motor boats that are out there right now, and the waves and the changes in climate and all these different things that are also shoreline development. All these different things are affecting it. Is there a way to make sure that we as a state want to protect this incredibly important resource? Is there a way that we can make sure that we do that and get the most bang for our buck? So I think that's where we got really close to a sort of a triage approach, where we could have said, hey, the number one issue here is that there's a lot of wave action from jet skis. I'll throw that one out there. That's what's causing the issue here. This other spot, it's actually, no, this is being caused by industrial runoff or something like that. That we need to concentrate there, rather than just sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. So I hope we get back to that approach. It would make a lot of sense for wild rice restoration and protection, but we'll see.
You just kind of answered all the questions on this paper, but indirectly, so that's kind of nice, So what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to ask you a personal question. So say some of our viewers are, maybe even our youth, want to get interested and want to try to find resources on pathways to get into Allete or get into a position with the Allete company. How would they go about that? maybe to get a tribal liaison job or even just try to get their foot in the door? How would they go about that?
Yeah, I can give a shot.
There.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be one of those shared opportunities or synergies we'd love. We at Allete and under the direction of our leadership and how we feel about it personally, would love to have some of those experiences and some of that knowledge come into Allete. We're always looking for new, fresh faces that can give us some new perspective. We routinely do post job openings for interns, full-time positions. I've got a few positions in my group this summer. Every summer we hire four people, usually college students or high school graduates, that work on our hydropower reservoirs. So they work on the recreation sites, the campsites. They do some mowing. They do some work on the boat ramps. So we always are encouraging folks to apply for those positions. And then we are typically hiring all across the company, anywhere from a intern to a mid-level career specialist. So I would say, really, there's no secret sauce or special formula. It's, think about where you might want to, what you might want to work in. And I think there's some pretty good resources out there, like what the education requirements would be and what the experience requirements would be. But it's a pretty, we really like the idea of opening up the space, kind of at the entry level to a wide variety, not make the bar so high so people can get in and then take advantage of some of those education opportunities and training opportunities that the company provides.
Companies are people too, right? And so I think one of the very best things to do is if you're interested in a company, find someone who works there and don't be afraid to cold call even. One of my first kind of introductions to Minnesota Power was somebody at the military base I was working with knew somebody at Minnesota Power and said, talk to this person. I didn't know them. They didn't know me, but I was looking for a job, right? And so I think building those connections, even if it feels weird, often will lead to something, maybe not right away, but that's helpful. Finding someone who can talk to you a little bit more about the company and what you'd be interested in. And I wanted to share too that we've been doing some work with the tribal colleges to kind of highlight opportunities. So we just built a big solar array in Duluth. We built one out by Brainerd, and we partnered with some tribal colleges to get students to come out and visit while it was being constructed. So see what this looks like, how it gets developed and constructed, and hopefully pique some people's interests in different career fields.
I had a question about the tribal liaison role. Do you guys ever share the job opportunities with the tribes that you work with?
Every one of our job postings gets shared with the tribes and the colleges too. So we do share that.
Sometimes more than once. So our HR department might have an HR liaison at Fond du Lac or Leech Lake that it's shared, but for example, if I have a environmental or a land opening in my group, I reach out directly to the folks I work with, either at Fond du Lac or Leech Lake, and say, hey, if you know anybody who's interested, we got these job openings coming up, and encourage qualified folks to apply.
Does that ever make it onto their websites? Do you know?
Onto the Fond du Lac website?
Fond du Lac, Leech Lake.
I don't know that question. I don't know the answer to that.
I was just wondering because I asked because I don't know if I've seen the opportunities funnel in, and maybe there's a disconnect there that I could try to help out with, because that would be an awesome opportunity for some of these tribal members to check out, to get involved with.
For sure, and we're always open to, there are better ways to do things. We are all ears, and would gladly like to do things in a better way if there are other ideas too.
I really like that, how you talked about training opportunities, and that's something, people need to hear. I mean, if they can get their foot in the door and, make an effort to, like cold call,
Yeah.
like you said, or just to make a resume and put it in, and say once you get the call and they accept you and you don't know nothing about it, but you have a high school diploma or like some of that. Do you have an apprenticeship program that people could actually strive for, and like where the Allete company would actually train them?
One of our solar projects, we built a big solar farm outside of Brainerd, and we partnered with the White Earth Tribal College out there, and something really cool happened. So they had, I don't remember what their course was called. It was some sort of renewable energy kind of course, right? And the students in that course came out and spent days on the construction site, kind of learning how it was built. And at the end of that project, our general contractor, Hunt Electric, offered apprenticeships to all of those students. And I can't say what happened from there, if they took it, if they, ran with that opportunity, or if it was even an opportunity they wanted. But I think those kind of connections are so valuable, right? So it wasn't even like Minnesota Power offering them this job, but, our general contractor saw these students and was like, come work with us. And I think connections are kind of the source of so much good. And the more we can build upon those, the better, I think.
What I had a question thinking about the apprenticeships, and then kind of everything that you guys were saying before. What do you do? What does the company do to give back?
Yeah, so we give back in a number of ways. Maybe I'll start, and then Kurt, you can add to it. But we have our own foundation, the Minnesota Power Foundation, and I don't have the numbers on top of my head. I probably should have. That gives money back to the community every year, and that the foundation's focus has shifted over the last several years, and we do things like offer scholarships. We support things like the American Indian Community Housing Organization, other nonprofits in the area that are doing really good work. And so that's one way we give back through our foundation, kind of monetarily. But I'd say, another saying at Minnesota Power is we give back with our time, talent, and our treasure. So, the foundation dollars are one piece, but our employees are also very active in the community, volunteering their time, volunteering their talent. And we're always kind of keeping an eye out for where it makes sense for us to engage too. So one of the follow-ups that Kurt was referencing after we did this tribal training, we had a lot of employees saying, my role at the company isn't as a tribal liaison, but I want to be involved in some way. And is there an effort that I can help with? Is there something else for me to do? So I think we're always kind of on the lookout for opportunities for employees to engage too, and would welcome those ideas as they come.
Yeah, and I think some of the other ways that the company's been giving back, I'll focus on a couple environmental and land issues. So about 6 or 7 years ago, we had a chance Minnesota Power owns about 30,000 acres of land, and a lot of that is forested. And we definitely recognize that the forests underwent a dramatic change with the logging operations that happened over 100 years ago, and we've seen that since the big white pine and the red pine were cut down, that what we've seen come back has been more of the aspen and the balsam fir. So the ecological balance sort of got out of whack there, and so we had an opportunity with our forestry plan. We could kind of continue on with I call kind of the standard model of let the aspen regenerate and harvest again, and after so many years, and just let it get pretty much like a put and take fishery, right? So, or we could do something different. Or we could do something that was reflective of the way the region was and what might provide ecological value and aesthetic value. So we made a commitment to restore 3 million white, red, and jack pine on our lands, and over 10 years. So there'll be a few thousand there that we'll be able to give away, and help spread the pines around a little bit more even.
Appreciate that.
Yes, that is amazing. That's awesome work, and to give back and stuff like that to the communities and just the surrounding areas, and just giving back life. That's what I'd say, that's what planting trees is actually doing, is giving back life. I think we're just almost getting low on time here.
No, I really appreciate you guys coming on here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both very much. This is good. Good conversation.
You should really be doing this like for a full-time gig. You have like the voice for it.
A podcast voice?
Yeah, you really
you
do. You really do. You put us to shame, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being such gracious hosts. That helps a lot.
All right. Wewene sana in Ojibwe, that means take care.
Aho, gigawabamin.
Aho.
Minawa.